Hello, Demi Kendrick. You are editor-in-chief of the Green European Journal, which is a part of the Green European Foundation and aspires to be the #1 journal of political ecology in Europe. Twice a year, Green European Journal publishes a special printed edition, and the last one, the volume 21, is titled Democracy Ever After, with a question mark, a perspective on power and representation. Why did you choose such a topic at this moment?
Thank you. First, I'd say that I'd have loved to be there in person. Unfortunately, I couldn't for health reasons, but I'd have loved to be there with you at the summer school to talk in person. Why did we publish on democracy and representation now? So there's been worries about the state of democracy in many European countries and around the world for years now, but we thought it was especially pressing to consider today because of three big trends. One of them is something that I don't need to tell you about in Poland, which is just the ongoing deterioration of the quality of democracy in many countries, basic rights and freedoms, media plurality, rights of assembly. These are under question in many places and need our attention. We need to think critically about how to address them. The second reason was that we see in many countries that the party-based way of doing democracy is under stress and is being pulled in different directions. One of the ways we see this is from social movements. Fridays for Future, the Yellow Vests in France, Black Lives Matter. They're all about how political institutions aren't representing certain people and their interests, their concerns, whether that's the environment, climate emergency, or structural racism. And movements are part of the story of democracy, and they tell us where it's not working. So we wanted to understand that. And the last reason, and probably the most urgent one, was the strength of the far right in many European countries. And what we wanted to say is they're not only unnecessarily undemocratic, but they're proposing alternative, exclusionary version of democracy. It's often based on a nation, it's often xenophobic, it's often misogynistic. And what we wanted to do is show how they were tapping into the idea of representing and incarnating the people, and how that the Greens and progressives would also have to tap into that desire for a narrative and for a story and for representation in order to protect democracy.
Okay, for the Greens, climate change, or rather climate and biodiversity emergency, have always been an absolute priority. And the sixth IPCC report obliges everyone to greatly accelerate the radical changes in the economy and our way of living, because we need to cut greenhouse gas emission in half in just a few years. Can democracy and the participation be an effective system in such difficult and demanding times?
I think not only can it be an effective system, that it's probably the only effective system for really dealing with ecological crisis. Sometimes you hear people say, oh, wouldn't it be more efficient if we were authoritarian and we could just, impose environmental restrictions? But I don't think that's a good example. If you look at countries such as China and you look closely at some of the actions they've taken on climate change, they've often overlooked certain other environmental impacts, or they've overlooked the communities living near certain projects. And the same is true when you look at the history of environmental injustice in Europe. In the edition, we have an essay about environmental injustice in Italy and about the long history of a town whose work, all the work and the prosperity of the town depended on a highly polluting factory. But the pollution was also highly damaging to the local environment, to the health of the people that live near the factory, and lasted for decades. And what the two journalists who wrote this article argue is that the story of a healthy environment and also social justice for this town in Italy is a story of local democracy, and it's just what happened over generations of the locals pushing to regain democratic control of their environment was also how they are working today for a healthy environment. It's not there yet. They're still repairing decades of environmental damage linked to this factory. But the idea that you can separate democracy from ecology, I don't think works. I think so much of the transition and the green project today is about re-democratizing aspects of life, so that communities can control how they produce their food or how they produce their energy. And it's really about people coming together and deciding on their future. And that's what I think makes the Green Project so important to the story of democracy today, because it's really proposing a way forward to bring democracy back to life and fill democracy with meaning.
Thanks a lot, Jamie. And I hope you will join us online, and we will be able to continue and to ask you more questions about more specific topics, like, for example, the tools of direct democracy that are citizens' assemblies or referendums. It's an interesting topic, and I hope that we'll be able to speak about it directly. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you very much. I hope the rest of the summer academy goes well, and I can join you online.